Sam was kind, compassionate, empathetic, generous, loving, and has had a thirst for anything or anyone. Overall, he loved life, loved people, and was always positive, no matter what the circumstances. He was youthful till the end. Thank you all for the kind condolences, and it's your words which best describe Sam. Here's a snippet. He was a great person, our hero. What a life he lived, a very special human, one of a kind, very sweet, one of life's true gentlemen, a wonderful role model, and I already miss him greatly. Sam was the epitome of a great migrant success story and a model of the best of us. Triumph over adversity with grace, humility and good humour. I was so lucky to have him as a friend. He enriched my life. Sam was such a star in every capacity. Wisdom, laughter, fun. He could light up a room. From one of his employees. He's left such an impact on our hearts. He was not only a respected boss, but a cherished friend. His warmth and wisdom will be greatly missed. Your dad was what we should aim to be in life, such a special man. For one of my daughter's friends. He was always so warm and friendly and curious about our lives. He was so youthful and blended easily with us, 70 years his junior. I remember at my mother's funeral, the rabbi saying, if God put an angel on this world, it was my father, Sam Webb. And he truly was an angel. He had such a zest for life, still exercising, going to his office, driving, and do what most 98-year-olds could not do. It was in fact 2 weeks off his 99th birthday. Continually amazing, all his medicos, physios, trainers. He loved to show his balance, standing on one foot on a balance ball. He loved things to be ordered and an incredibly organised mind. Even in his last days at hospital, the first time he'd been in pain from his pancreatitis, he pointed to my visitor sticker. I had it on my jacket, and it was upside down. God forbid. He said, can you put that up the right way? When he went on buying trips for his wholesale giftware business, he developed his own formula to work out what the items he was looking at in factories would cost in the shop. And in his own head, he could calculate packing, shipping, customs, markups, and he was incredibly accurate. On these trips, he travelled to Japan when no Australian wanted to buy from Japan after World War II. He was a pioneer into China and India, where he developed strong relationships with factories which enabled him, at the ripe age of 92, to do the biggest deal of his life, supplying Walmart in the US direct from China. He went on buying trips with my mother in every part of Europe, including Italy, Spain, England, Portugal, Hungary, Poland, Romania, and to the then Czechoslovakia. My father formed lifelong relationships with his agents, which he maintained. I was the beneficiary of this relationship with Satish in Delhi and Alvaro Pacini in Florence. When I was travelling, they would always chaperone me, invite me to their houses, and take me to wonderful restaurants. Born in Breslatov in 1924, at that time it was part of Poland. Prior to that, it was part of Russia and is now part of Belarus. There was a Jewish shtetl in Brest, and my family lived in a compound where my grandfather had a sheet metal factory. My father was subjected to anti-Semitism from the time he started school, where he was continually taunted by the Polish boys as a Jew. Not knowing any better, this became simply part of his life and part of his resilience. Despite that, he enjoyed his youth playing with his brother Bill and sister Anne and their extended family. He recalled being inventive, making ice skates by strapping a piece of wood to his shoes with a thong of leather, making a V shape at the bottom with wood, where he would insert a piece of thin metal and then skate on the ice. He particularly enjoyed visits to his mother's family in Biała Podlaska, where they would play in the woods and swim in the river. He recalls as a young boy making a floating device by stringing together cork bottle stoppers. My grandfather was a great orator and became president of the Workers' Union in Brest, and often would travel to Warsaw to lobby. He became a speechwriter for the MP representing the union, and it was this which eventually saved his family. In 1938, there was a pogrom targeting the Jews in Brest, assaulting, looting, breaking shop windows. My father recalled spending days in their loft of their house, hearing the sounds of the looting and the assaults. My grandfather had put the young kids up in the loft. We were fortunate as a family to do a roots trip to Belarus, probably not possible now, in 2019. The whole family went, my father, me, Danielle, my kids, Maya, Michaela, Noah, Maya's partner, Nathan, and their kids, Louis and Pip, who was then just a baby. My sister Roz went with her kids, Emily and David's then and current partner Miriam. It was very cathartic and emotional for my father to visit his place of birth and relive his youth. He was able to remember the synagogue where the family prayed. It was now, when we went, a picture theatre, but you could go down to the basement where there were the stone walls. And he emotionally put his hand on the stone wall and did a prayer for all his lost family. My father recognised the trees he used to play on, climbing, the bedroom he slept in, and the attic where he and his sister Anne and brother Bill hid during the pogrom. We were fortunate that he was able to find the house, and when we knocked on the door, and the woman who was then living there, when she heard the story, welcomed us in, and we were able to go through the whole house. My father showed the banisters where he used to slide down, his bedroom, and that attic where he hid with his family during the pogrom. We were put in contact with a UK-based group called the Together Plan, which were active telling the story of Jews in Belarus during the war. Part of what they were doing was, and Jenny, I think you're here somewhere, the Nazis had taken the Jewish gravestones to make roads, and they were digging up these gravestones and to put in a memorial. They also put us in contact with a researcher in Brest who put together our whole family tree. And it was quite emotional seeing that hundreds of my father's family had been killed by the Nazis in the woods in Bonagoro. We went there and we said prayers for them, and it brought home the reality of what we're currently going through with anti-Semitism. They unearthed the newspaper article from where my grandfather had gone into Warsaw for a workers' convention. The newspaper article indicated how my grandfather had addressed the union in Yiddish and Polish. This then was a scandal. How my father's immediate family got out of Poland pre-World War II was fortuitous. My grandfather, on finding out in that 1938 pogrom that it was led by the Polish chief of police in Brest, had complained to the mayor of Brest and the MP with whom he had a relationship in an effort to instigate an inquiry. Within a couple of days, he was told by the mayor, "Get out of Brest and get out quick." His life was in grave danger. And so the family left, packing wicker baskets and heading to the port, from where they went by boat to Southampton. They were left with the choice of migrating to either Uruguay, Zimbabwe, then Rhodesia, or Australia. Look at a map, Australia was the furthest away from Europe, so Australia it was, thank goodness. Whilst in Southampton, my father spotted a vendor selling bananas. He'd never tasted a banana, but had seen them on a Tarzan movie. He begged my grandfather for a penny to buy a banana, and he sat on the sidewalk and for an hour savouring the taste, which he could never describe. When he got to Australia, he could buy 6 bananas for a penny, and this became his means for valuing things. How many bananas would that buy? My father enjoyed the boat trip to Australia, the sea air, hearing other languages, and mixing with various people from England and other countries. My father enjoyed that trip, and on landing in Australia, the family lived in Drummond Street in Carlton. My father recalls from the upstairs window seeing kids kicking a strange-shaped ball on the nature strip. His curiosity got the better of him and he went downstairs to observe closer. To his surprise, the kids invited him to kick with them. This would never have happened in Poland, and it was that opened his eyes to the inclusivity in Australia. He was just 13, and the working age was 14, so he lied about his age, and as the war broke out, there were factory jobs for anyone, and making things particularly for the war effort. One day at the factory he was working in, there was a co-worker around his age, a little bit older, who was calling him a refo, slang for refugee. My father ignored it as it was nothing compared to what he used to cop in Poland. However, some of the older boys said to my father, "Why aren't you doing anything about that?" My father said, "It didn't matter," but they said, "Okay, what we're going to do is organise a fight at lunchtime, and you can sort it out." As a good Jewish boy, my father's mother had always told him not to get in fights with goys. Nevertheless, the fight took place. My father landed a few punches, as did the other chap. And when there was blood, the other workers said, "Righto, now get up and shake hands." From that day on, my father was never called a derogatory name by that boy or anyone else at the factory, and he actually made friends with the other boy. At 16, he announced to his parents he was going to work on a farm in Swan Hill, where he found a job that was paying more than the wage he was earning in the factory. Always the adventurer, he wanted to experience rural Australia. Things didn't work out that well on the farm, where he was more or less exploited as a slave, so within a month he had hitched a ride back to Melbourne. During the war there was a shortage of fuel, so my father and his friend Ted Levinson converted motorbikes to run on kerosene. And though it had to be pushed to start and was noisy and smelly, they were able to travel around, and he always said he loved going to Warrandyte. That was the bush. During the war, my father's brother Bill and my grandfather set up a cottage industry converting scrap metal in their backyard in Brunswick into useful items like rubbish bins and pots and pans. They would then sell these at markets. My father recently confessed that the van, also converted to run on kerosene, that he and his brother Bill used to take to sell their goods in the country markets in Warragul and the Western District, had a mattress in the back which they told their mum was to sleep on at night. He confessed that the mattress got quite a workout with the country girls, both during the day and at night. My father met my mother when she was doing her matriculation, year 12, at University High. He was infatuated by the exotic, beautiful French girl, and although she had ambitions to go to university, and indeed got a place in the pharmacy college, they were married when she turned 17. My mother was exceptionally bright, and my father, though uneducated, had an excellent gut instinct for business. Once married, they went into the giftware business, usually the markets, shops, then wholesaling. My mother had a great eye for goods and was a gun seller. My father, a wonderful negotiator and a calculated risk taker. As a team, they built a fantastic business. My father was always ahead of his time. As he was in Australia and buying goods in foreign currencies, he worked out he could utilise exchange rates to his benefit. At that time, all the currency transactions out of Australia were done in London. He was early into derivatives, hedging, but not many Australians knew what hedging was. He was going long and short currencies back in the 1960s. He was an early adopter of computers. When he realised that they could do better than what many humans could do, he installed in 1977 an IBM 34 system. This took a very large room, cost over $100,000, and it then cost him $60,000 extra to program it. He was still up until a month or so ago spending time on his iMac, doing Zoom calls and following the stock market. He's also a proud Tesla owner. And I've got his watch on, his Apple Watch also. He understood the value of land and invested prudently, always buying, never renting, both for work premises and living, as well as using surplus funds for property. He often recalled the story of his father had told him about a relative who was a general in the Russian army. When they were being beaten on the front, the general said to the Tsar, "We need to retreat, our army will be slaughtered." The Tsar replied, "Men are expendable, land is not." My father was exceptionally fit both in body and mind till very recently. I recall when I was a kid, he'd do the Canadian Army 4BX program every day. This was a challenging regime of exercise that ramped up as you passed various levels. He embraced swimming, golf, gym, Pilates, yoga, meditation, and up until very recently, he would put the younger people to shame at Gwingana, where he was a pin-up boy for doing all their programs, both exercise and healthy food courses. As Roz mentioned, he loved scuba diving and would go on wonderful exotic diving trips with both his family and people he'd met from various countries around the world. Initially, when I dived with him, he was my buddy. In diving, you have a buddy in case anything goes wrong. There is a system where you can share your regulator. If there is an issue with your buddy's regulator, or if either of you run into trouble, you share the other's regulator. On one dive, when we were buddies, I had a faulty regulator, and I did not have the amount of air I needed to dive. As I was running out of air, I looked around for my father, who was my buddy, for assistance, but he was nowhere to be seen. I later found out he had found an underwater cave, got fascinated, went in to explore, and forgot completely about me. I managed to get to the surface and swore never to buddy with him again. My father was so strong in both body and mind, and it really did seem that he would go on forever. He had from his past an extensive group of friends, and he made sure he visited any remaining living friends and relatives in aged care, homes, and hospital. He did this regularly, and he loved it. He still was going to the office until a couple of months ago, where he has Hanny and Lisa running the office. Family was everything to my father, and he loved having his family around. He'd always reinforce, family is everything. In his last days, he was in peace at his home, surrounded by family, including now part of our family, Sam's much-loved companion, carer, Margaret. Margaret had been with him for 10 years. Margaret has a great sense of humour, is multi-talented and a fantastic cook. We are also indebted to Margaret for teaching my father how to swear. He never did prior to being with her. Then things became fucking this, fucking that all the time. Thanks, Margaret. Margaret was always by my father's side, and she got to know him better than he knew himself. She knew when he was in hospital with a catheter and a drip and not meant to get out of bed, he would try. He was still strong enough, she knew. She knew he wouldn't buzz the nurses as was in danger of falling. So she would stay all the night at the hospital sleeping on the floor. Thanks, Margaret. We will be eternally grateful and look forward to seeing you, your food, at all our family simchas. In his last days, my father was at peace at his home just the way he liked it, helped by Marv and his team at Hospice in the Home, who were truly wonderful. He will now be reunited with his beloved wife, my mother Raymond, and as you heard from Roz, they were a team always and a much-loved couple. On Thursday, he said to me, well, all of us, "I have to do the shopping. I only have 2 days left." Indeed, he passed on Saturday, exactly 2 days later. My father's journey was so full of experiences as documented in his book, aptly named Being Bold. He loved telling his story to Romy. Romy, amazing. He just would like that to go on forever. He loved you so much. I'll just read 2 paragraphs from the book. At page 6 in the preface, quote, "Whatever I've done in my life, I can connect to my youth. That's why I can remember it so well. I've carried my youth with me throughout my life. It moulded everything I've done and shaped me into the person I've become." At page 73, over the decades, my priorities have remained constant. I still strive to learn, to search, to contribute, to be useful, to be productive, to challenge myself both physically and mentally. I feel fortunate that I have an ability to approach life as a series of interesting challenges. I strongly believe one of the reasons my father's longevity, with his wits about him, was his dedication to physical fitness, the fact that he was working right till the end, and most of all, his positivity in any and all situations. To borrow from one of your services, Rabbi Konya. Birth, he was also very emotional, so I've kept it together till now, so hopefully I can. I've got the genes. Birth is a beginning and death is a destination and life is a journey. My father's journey has been so full and so wonderful right to the end. He and we could not wish for more than to be his age, doing what he was able to do with such joy, gratitude, love, kindness, compassion, and generosity. There's a poem that I've slightly modified to encapsulate how my father would like us to celebrate his life. It's a poem by David Harkins. You can shed tears that he is gone, or you can, as Sam would want, smile because of the life he has lived. You can close your eyes and pray that he will come back, or you can, as Sam would want, open your eyes and see all that he has left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see him, or you could, as Sam would want, be full of the love you shared. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live yesterday, or you can, as Sam would want, be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember him and only that he is gone, or you can cherish Sam's memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back, or you can do what Sam would want, smile, open your eyes, love, and go on.
I'm going to ask the pallbearers to come forward up here to assist with the moving of the coffin, and I'll invite all the rest of the guests to exit through that back way, and we'll follow the coffin to the graveside right next to Ramon, and we'll finish the remainder of the service over there. Thank you very much.